Hi, it's Mary Beth Olson from MBO Media. I'm so excited to be interviewing a dear friend and colleague, Erica Meier, on behalf of Plant Burger for their Save the Planet series. Erica has been a vegan for more than 25 years. She started working in the animal protection since college, and she's been the president of Animal Outlook since 2005. Erica was honored in 2013 with the Animal Rights Hall of Fame Award and has been working hard for animals ever since. Erica, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, Mary Beth.
Of course, absolutely. So my first question in our conversation is, what inspired you to go into the field of animal advocacy?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think everyone comes at this from many different paths, but there's also something unifying that a lot of us find in our stories. So for me, I, sort of came to this idea that I, as a child, really loved animals that I think most children come to. Like you just really bond with dogs or cats or other animals in your lives. And I made this connection that I didn't want to eat animals. Once I realized the meat on my plate was an animal, and it wasn't something that my family was very, very supportive of. It wasn't something I didn't even know there was a word for. I didn't know the word vegetarian. I had no idea what any of this meant. So that was like a younger idea that just kind of like I held on to, but didn't do anything with. And then it was in high school. I just entered high school and really decided that environmental activism was something real. I knew people who were involved in this. I got really excited behind this idea of protecting the planet. And my parents gave me this book. They probably regretted it later on. They gave me this book that was called like 101 Ways to Save the Planet. And it was meant for, kids, younger kids, high school kids, on tangible ways to get involved. And it had tips like, using less water in the shower and low flow toilets and all that. But it had little factoids in there about how a meat-based diet uses up more resources than a plant-based diet, and how there's more pollution that's caused from meat production. And so I started reading these words like vegetarian, like people who want to protect the planet, a lot of them go vegetarian. So this made this connection for me of I want to protect the planet and I want to protect animals. So in high school, I think I was just between my freshman and sophomore years, I decided I'm going to become a vegetarian. And so I became a vegetarian in high school, and it turns out my friends around me became vegetarian, which was really awesome. Many of them still are today. And then in college, I discovered what veganism was. And somebody had shown me some video footage and photos inside a dairy factory farm and an egg factory farm. And it just blew my mind. I had no idea the horrors that these animals were living. And so I decided to go vegan. And then somebody said, have you heard of PETA? And I was like, what's PETA? So I was going to school in Massachusetts, but I had several friends in college who lived in the DC area. So they, on a break, took me down to DC when PETA was located in DC. And that's when I discovered animal advocacy, not only as something that you can do and care about, but you can make a career out of. And these people at PETA were all doing this for a living. They were out there protecting animals without being a veterinarian. Like that was my mind, is like, you have to be a veterinarian to protect animals. That was the only option. And going to PETA is what made me realize, like, you can do this. You can commit yourself to protecting animals and make it a full-time job. It's nonprofit, it's not great paying, but it's where my passion was. And that's what led me there.
That's so amazing. And for all you folks who don't know this, because probably I haven't talked about this other than maybe on a podcast or something with Danny, but Erica gave me my first shot working in that world because I was just obsessed, had watched a lot of videos myself and just could not believe that this was like the regular occurrence. And this is what happened on a daily, if not, on a minute to minute basis to these poor animals. And so I remember going out to lunch with you at not Politics and Bros, Bus Boys and Poets.
Bus Boys and Poets.
Yeah,
great
and
vegan
the fabulous vegan menu, love it. And just being like, how can I promote? Like, how can I work to help animals? What can I do? So there's this whole, array of ways that people can get involved that, like you said, it was not as, it was not as prevalent now. There weren't as many options then. So you mentioned agriculture, and you mentioned the impact that meat has on the planet. So for people who may not be aware, tell us a little bit about the animal the impact that animal agriculture has on the planet, in all the different facets of it.
Yeah, I mean, there are organizations that put a lot more energy and focus behind this to read if you're interested in a lot more details. But on a surface level, sort of understanding the system of meat production, it is, the United Nations has deemed animal agriculture one of the leading sources of pollution as well as resource depletion, and that the best way we can protect the planet is to eat fewer animals. And the idea really behind this, and this is the United Nations, and they have several different agencies that have put out different statements, all kind of coming to the same conclusion, that the best way we can protect the planet is to eat lower on the food chain and eat more plants. And the reason for this is, when you think about the number of farm animals being raised, just even in the United States alone, we're talking about 9 to 10 billion land animals. This doesn't include fish. The United States Department of Agriculture doesn't count fish as individuals. So we really don't even know how many fish are raised or killed for food. But we're talking about 9 to 10 billion cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, and other animals in those categories. And they all produce waste. They all produce massive amounts of waste that need to go somewhere. And that pollutes the groundwater, it pollutes the fields, it pollutes the air. I mean, a lot of people living in these more rural communities where factory farms tend to be located, they can't even breathe the air without having like that pungent ammonia in it. And so, animal agriculture, when we think about we think about like old McDonald's farm. We think about, the cows living on the pasture and the chickens running around and scratching the grass. And in reality, they are intensively confined inside these massive warehouses. And in some cases, inside these houses, they're in cages. And they are stacked upon stacked, and they're just raised in these large numbers in these small areas. They're producing a lot of waste. They're drinking a lot of water. We're growing all of these crops to give to these farm animals. And a lot of those crops could feed people directly. So it's a really insufficient way of producing food for global consumption. And there are organizations like A Well-Fed World is a really great organization that talks a lot about the environmental impact of raising animals for food, as well as global hunger relief and what we can do to help feed more people who are hungry around the planet simply by not supporting the meat, egg, and dairy industries.
Yeah, I know, I completely agree. And I think that when it comes down to it, people have no idea really what they've been told. I mean, look at the food pyramid. We know that that is no longer applies. I mean, look at these different just norms that we were grown up to accept as reality that are definitely in the interest of big ag and in the interest of the people who are making the money and exploiting the animals. And I think that, to your point, when you look at all that food that has been used to feed the animals, it's just an eye opener.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different ways to get involved, and a lot of what we see about protecting the planet involves climate change policies. We're involved in the Paris climate treaties. And so there are a lot of conversations to be had, but I think the really important aspect that we can talk about and that we should talk about is what we can do on an individual basis, because our individual actions have such a collective impact that it's really important for us to take those steps that we can easily take. And the most important way that we can protect animals, we can protect our own health as well as public health, and we can protect the planet, is to simply choose plant-based options. It is by far the most effective step that we can take on an individual basis every day, as many times a day as possible, preferably every meal of your day. And there are different ways to get involved too. There are challenges you can get involved with. We have a Veg Week Pledge challenge that we run in April, encouraging people to go vegan for a week, sort of test it out, try new foods, and hopefully explore those options that you'll stick with. There are challenges that you can get involved with if you need a vegan buddy to help you through, a week or a month. And so just trying those options that are increasingly available in more and more stores and restaurants across the country.
That's fantastic. And tell me, if you know the stat off the top of your head, how many years does a vegan diet increase one's life? Do you know that one? I've heard vegetarian is a different outcome, and then vegan is another outcome.
Yeah, I don't know that exact statistic. I'm sure it is available online, and they probably vary a
Yes.
little bit, but without a doubt, I mean, even our own government and dietary guidelines are starting to recognize the health benefits of choosing a plant-based diet. Vegetarians and vegans tend to have lower rates of heart disease. Of course, the vegan diet has no dietary cholesterol at all. Dietary cholesterol comes from eating animal products, and plants don't have any cholesterol. So heart disease, their low rates of heart disease tend to have lower rates of diabetes, lower rates of various cancers. And another really important aspect from a health perspective is about our global and public health. And this is the idea that pandemics are often associated with animals and how we interact with the animal world. And we see factory farming as one of the key components that is giving a rise to an increased number of pandemics and potential pandemics, including swine flu and bird flu. So from a personal health standpoint, as well as a public health standpoint, eating plants directly definitely makes a difference and is an important step we can all take.
That's fantastic. So, Erica, where can people find you on the World Wide Web? Where can they find you on social?
So on the topic of vegan eating, for those of you who might be new to it or want to explore it or share it with your friends and family, tryveg.com is an Animal Outlook website to definitely check out. You can get free recipes and other tips and tricks for vegan eating, and you can download a free vegan starter guide. You can also find us online at animaloutlook.org. And you can also find me on social media under my handle, Erica Meier, and that's Meier. So there's lots of different ways to engage and get involved.
That's so awesome. Well, Erica, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you, and keep up all the amazing work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Erica. Bye-bye.
Bye.